各位新加坡同胞，晚上好。我非常荣幸今晚能在空中与你们相遇。我的名字是苏元顺，目前是革新党中央委员。我曾经在2015年代表革新党在西海岸选区参选。我现龄51岁，已婚，有一个孩子。我目前在一家建筑公司上班，是一名人事部管理员。我从小在河水山西一带长大，住在一房式的贫民区，由单亲妈妈一手抚养我们弟妹4人。每当学校放假时，我都会去打假期工来补贴家用。就连我的澳洲大学学位，也是我在半工半读的情况下完成的。虽然我的家境贫穷，通过大学教育也摆脱了贫困。由于经历过贫困，我非常了解低下阶层的困难和处境。常常有弟兄姐妹问我为什么要参政，为什么要参加反对党？我的答案是为人民服务，替国人争取他们的权利。我也希望能够改革我们现有的一些教育制度，让更多年轻人完成他们的教育梦想。我希望成为你们的代议士，在国会为你们发言，争取福利。希望你们会支持我们革新党。谢谢 ，Thank you.
All right. At this point, it is now my turn to give an introduction about myself. Friends and members of the public and Singaporeans, the reason why my name is Charles Yeo, and the reason why I joined the Reform Party is really because I feel that Singapore has become a society that is increasingly degenerate, morally speaking. I felt that to begin with, the society emphasizes too much on valuing a person based on what is his ability to contribute to society. And of course, we are not talking about eroding the person's personal work ethic. But at the end of the day, I believe that, we have to respect each and every man's inherent dignity. And allow me to elaborate really briefly before I start to invite or call upon the public to give questions. The irony is that the Singapore government always talks about, it brings in, our hyper-capitalism without Western liberal speech rights, yeah, and the civil rights. But it also brings in concepts of Confucian, obedience to one's superiors, and a Confucian ordering of society without Confucian values. Yeah. So because I saw like a lot of old people, picking cardboard and really being ill-treated, it started to make me question the truth of this, state narrative that the society is really a benevolent dictatorship as proposed by the PAP. But at this juncture, as the moderator, I'm going to end my introduction here. And I think I have really introduced myself in my previous videos as well. Yeah. So I'm now going to call upon questions from the members of the public, of which there is already one such question. There are two such questions at the moment. Okay. The first question is that, what is our policy on the CPF scheme? Kenneth, would you like to answer that?
I think I might pass that to Noraini, as she's our expert on CPF.
Okay.
Noraini, would you like to say a few words about CPF?
Yes, for CPF, I've been a worker most of my working life. I've been trying to do a self-employed, trying to trade stock such. But I've done it through ACRA, and after a while we decide to bail out our company. But most of the time I'm an employee. As such, I've got this kind of 37% now deduction on my total overall salary per month. That is the contribution to CPF. It's quite a lot to me, because at 37%, they divide into ordinary, special, as well as medical or MediSave, they call it. And the interest rate is quite low compared to the interest rate that if you were to invest or do even the time can deposit. And even Malaysian, even though they have the kind of higher interest rate, about 6 to 7%, the EMF or something, ours is the lowest at 2.5 for ordinary, and then 3.4 for MediSave as well as the special account. So otherwise, we will need to invest, for those who are savvy in investment, to use those funds to trade stocks or even do the unit trust, which many of us have done. And otherwise, once you reach 55, they set up a retirement account, the RA they call it, and then you can choose whether beyond 55 to 62, whether to take out your money, or right now they have the basic retirement scheme, PRS, they have the full retirement scheme, FRS, and the enhanced retirement scheme. Those will further create a very confused kind of scenario for most elders, which I found at this stage, even you project how much income they will get after all those written, what the exact percentage and so on. It's very confusing. Even the blog, which I've write up in the form of Facebook, posting, it's not enough to even explain, in all the languages that I've tried to translate, those kind of breakdown of how much you'll get after a few years, like 5 years upon 5 years and so on. So it's best that we will try to fight for your rights to have your income from CPF returned to you at age 55. But so far we've been not that successful to promote such, kind of promote your values that you want it to be returned to you at 55. But we will carry on to push our policy. It has been our manifesto for years. We will fight for your CPF to be returned as early as age 55. Thank you.
Thank you, Noraini. Maybe I can just come in and round up at the end. Our policy is that has always been that CPF is your money, and it should be returned, or you should have the option to withdraw it at 55 if you wish. On top of that, we recognize that for many Singaporeans, they're being hit with a double whammy of an aging HDB flat with a limited number of years left on the leasehold, and thus declining capital value. And we have another policy to deal with that, in which we want to give them the freehold of their HDB, but also inadequate CPF savings, because they've put it all into their property. So we also pledged to provide a benefit for seniors of senior citizens over 65 of $500 a month to help alleviate the most extreme hardship suffered. We also want to, I think, broaden the options that you have with in saving, and possibly to make it to reduce the level of contributions for the employee, and to make it more voluntary, and a greater range of savings vehicles competing with CPF. I think, yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Charles.
Okay. I think I just want to share very briefly that I think fundamentally the promise, if we look at the historical motivation, or rather the historical promise, there was a quote by Dr. Toh Chin Chai, who was the first founding chairman of the PAP, that stated that CPF is a promise to the persons. It's a promise, and it should not be, the government should not have the right to unilaterally amend the rules regarding the CPF, and also should not be able to raise the minimum sum at will, because logically speaking, persons who are unable to meet the minimum sum tend to be persons that are older. So I think they have a right to hold the PAP to their promise. That is really my own point of view. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it is, I think at least we can consider the proposition made by Dr. To, that if a bank were to do the same thing, everyone would, you know, really make a run on bank. They would not accept that. And I think fundamentally, there is no problem with the concept of a CPF scheme, at least from even, I mean, I've heard this view echoed by many persons, but the problem is with the constant raising of the age that persons are effectively able to withdraw their CPF, or limiting the amount paid out every month. Because if you're going to pay out the CPF in drips and drabs, then a lot of persons will not have taken the benefit, the real benefit of their CPF even by the time they pass away. Yeah. So kind of, because I want to call on you to elaborate a bit further on what I have said, because of the fact that there is a lot of discussion on our thread about the CPF matter. So do you agree with what I said?
I think, as I've said, we want to give you the option to withdraw all your CPF if you wish at 55. We also wish to help with the problem of seniors' poverty or lack of savings by providing an old age pension and implementing a universal health care so that people are not worried about excessive medical costs in old age. And we've said we have the resources to do this. What always has puzzled me is why the government is always, as you said, amending the age at which you can withdraw your CPF, increasing the minimum sum. They say that is because they want you to have adequate savings to pay for your retirement so that you won't be a burden on the state. But it is slightly puzzling or worrying in the context that we know that all the CPF savings are lent to GIC. So GIC is investing them. Are the investments illiquid? Is the government having problems repaying?
A question has come in from Janice, which is, what is our party's policy in dealing on the issue of GST that the ruling party intends to raise in the near future, most likely after voting year? So I think at this point in time, I'm going to call on sorry, I said Kenneth's name by mistake. I'm going to call upon Darren to share his views on the issue of GST. Mr. Darren, please.
Okay, can I speak in Mandarin?
Sure, Darren.
Okay, GST 我的想法是这个消费税呢我们现在
Very faint, Darren.
I will then translate, guys. I will translate the answer into English.
OK， 消费税，我认为现在这个时机，现在这个冠状病毒情况，这个时机，我们是不适合调高这个消费税。OK 因为我认为我们现在新加坡有足够的储备金，所以政府没有必要在这个时候调高这个消费税。OK 而且它的那个消费税的那个幅度是非常广泛的。OK 所以我就想
Darren, we've lost you. We're not hearing you.
Sorry, I was able to hear loud and clear.
Okay.
Darren, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So that's about all.
All right. Members of the public, Darren basically raised the point that at this point in time, he first of all pointed out that GST is actually a regressive tax that hits the persons who are the poor the most. That was the first point he made. And he also said that we are calling for, he reiterated a key manifesto proposal of the party, which is that GST on necessities should really be abolished or cut to zero even after the pandemic has abated. The justification is, of course, that necessities like water, cooking oil, salt, and rice, of course, and condiments and what is generally subsumed within the category of necessity is clearly something which in the context of it could be balanced by increasing the GST on luxury goods. And maybe we will call on Mr. Kenneth to share briefly about the difference, give us a brief econs sharing now on the difference between a progressive tax and a regressive tax.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. So I think our policy on GST is that we've said we would suspend it for the rest of 2020 and 2021. And then after that time, we would review it and move probably to a zero tax rate on essential items that constitute a bigger share of lower income groups' budgets, such as food, children's clothing, medicines, utilities, etc. So that's what we pledged to do, or we would fight for. The point about progressivity is that in Singapore we have a very unprogressive system, despite the government saying that the tax system is progressive. The maximum tax rate is 22% here, but there are so many loopholes which are unfair. Earned income is taxed, but unearned income is not taxed at all. Dividends, investment income, interest income are all not taxed. So we would like to see the same rate on investment income as applies on earned income. I'm not in favor of raising the tax rate significantly, and we don't need to do so if the government's figures for assets are to be believed. But we should ensure that all forms of income are taxed equally as an economist. Otherwise, we get distortions. We should also tax capital gains to avoid loopholes.
Okay, Mr. C.K. Lim has discussed, or rather he has asked us to state how we would improve on the situation whereby the job market has been vastly taken over by foreigners. Do I have I think thus far I've not spoken or given any answer at all. Would the members of the panel like me to give an answer? Or
maybe Darren would like to.
Sure, Darren.
Darren, do you have anything to say?
Okay. Can I say in Mandarin?
All right, sure.
Okay. 关于这个劳动市场呢，我认为那些年龄超过40岁的 PMET， 他们是受打击最大的一群因为那些 PMET 一超过40岁的话，他们的那个雇主会选择那些比较年轻的比较对科技比较熟悉的，所以这些超过40岁、50岁的很多这些超龄的 PMET， 他们都会面临就是失业，人还有很多年龄大的，他们对科技也是不太熟悉，所以他们也不太愿意去接受培训。
Yeah.
OK，
Darren, do you have anything more to add?
我希望政府会重视这些40岁以上失业的人士，然后我希望政府也会在给他们多一点津贴，让他们去受训 ，OK， 甚至是可以给雇主高达75%或80%的wage credit， so that 那个雇主会聘请年纪较大的员工，因为毕竟这些年纪较大的员工，他们的工作经验比较丰富处事待人也会比年轻人更加优秀。Back to you, Charles.
Yeah. Darren has actually answered the question to say that the problem is faced most acutely by senior PMETs or PMETs who are in the range of 40 to 50, which has been acknowledged extensively by all the political parties. I think whilst the political parties in Singapore may not there is a general consensus that the groups hit the most seriously are the older PMETs. Now, Darren actually raised a point which I think the bulk of what I wanted to say was also raised by Darren, where I tried to say that this is because of their being rendered vulnerable by the influx of young foreign persons who are both more energetic and also more technologically savvy than them. But it is a major concern because I think this is the point I wanted to raise, that firstly, the provision of foreign scholarships, there is a link between the provision of a lot of money, or 235 million on scholarship for foreigners, and the retrenchment of PMETs. Because if you think logically, a swamp of young persons given scholarships in Singapore, if a person has studied in Singapore for 4 years or even 6 years, is the case maybe, and many of these scholars or persons from abroad brought in to study, then begin to want to seek employment in Singapore. You know what I mean? And that will actually push the foreign PMETs out. So our manifesto has actually proposed an increase from 3,900 to 5,000. And that is, of course, the math has been done by Kenneth. But I want to say that, the justification is that the older PMETs who form part of the sandwich generation have a right to be protected against. They have a right to be protected as citizens of their own country on a moral basis, that if we accept that the legitimacy of the government in a nation state is based on taking care of its own people, whatever moral theory we use. For example, we may use the theory of Confucian ethics to justify this, or in fact, but I do not think that that this matter is in doubt, that a country's legitimacy or the government's legitimacy is based on the protection of its own people. Yeah. So, sorry. No. Okay. Sorry. I just want to respond to Mr. Jess Chris's comment. I think your comment is a bit uncivil, Mr. Jess, because Darren is not a new citizen from the communist China, and he is actually a born and bred Singaporean like myself. We want to allow for speaking in different languages. Yeah, this is very important. So at this point in time, I am going to, I hope Mr. Jess Chris can type comments in civil and polite language, because we are here to engage in respectful discourse with each other. We are not here to use harsh language. Yeah. Okay. No, right. I have a question actually, which is, what changes? I am first time voting. And can you explain, if you are elected to be in parliament, what changes will you make for us? Noraini, can you answer that?
Well, it's quite obvious for me. If you're a first-time voter, you can see that you have the empowerment in your hands. Being a woman minority candidate, we rarely see people vocal all the way to parliament. Most of us, even while vocal, seems as groaners, complainers, and slackers. It seems that we are either lazy, that we couldn't break through anywhere, or just being unavailable for an opportunity to even present ourselves in a better platform, on a better platform. So personally, for me, if you have given the empowerment, do exercise it with care and concern, so that you may want to see more voices like myself, a minority candidate, a woman candidate in parliament. So you may want to put in the empowerment to fruitful use. I hope one of the changes to make is to see more of us in parliament, so that we can bring out issues like our economy, so they won't be threatened even by COVID. Suddenly when they shut down, we are left with barely our savings and our lifestyle. We just locked down at home and we're not able to move about. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Noraini. Okay, a question has now come in, a very simple question from Mr. Chua Bing Hong, which is, will you guys be walking around Fernvale and Hougang area that is under Ang Mo Kio GRC? The answer is yes. We today spent 4.5 hours, myself, Noraini, and other party volunteers at the Hougang area. Regarding the matter of the Fernvale area, I have received, I do not, first of all, we want to say that multiple messages have been received from members of the public urging us to go to Fernvale. We really thank you guys, and in that regard, tomorrow we will be going first thing in the morning to Fernvale, and the address, the exact Fernvale address, will be published. I noted that more than 10 different persons have been asking about this, especially in messages and comments, and also some personal friends of mine, So Mr. Jason, if you're watching this, we will be going to Fernvale tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, so, okay. A good question has come in by Mr. Steve Low. Could we elaborate on our HDB policy? I cannot agree that the amount of money that we paid for a non-strata leasehold home ultimately is worth zero. Would any of the panelists like to take this up?
Well, maybe Noraini.
Okay, they have this strata kind of management, they call it legal thingy. They always charge us like $1 or something per annum or per year. And after 99 years, they told us the value of your level, because you don't pay for the land. You're just building on top of each other. So they have this strata kind of management thingy that pay about $1 or something. So it's so low, but in times of 99 years over, the strata value will turn to zero. That's to my understanding. You see, so we're all very shocked, because Lee Kuan Yew, the late Lee Kuan Yew, promised us a value to uphold when it comes to our HDB. We buy it at a subsidy, no doubt, but in terms of selling it to to the market forces, we earn some profit. But when it comes to passing it on to the next generation, because of these strata management issues, it's like a leasehold. After 99 years, you're building on top of each other. There's no land value to your flat, you see, because you're building on top of the land piece, which on top of each other. So technically you're building on air, from what we understand, the land strata deeds or something to the effect. So with the 99-year lease, it becomes zero. So your next generation after that, third generation to speak, the average of 25 to 30 years generation, will have no value to that flat.
Okay. At this juncture, the technical administrator has now begun to show us some material that has been prepared by the Secretary General. Is that accurate, Mr. Secretary General?
Well, Charles, this is the party manifesto, and I think we've all voted on it and agreed.
Sorry. Yeah, correct. What I mean to say is that this material has been prepared by this is our party's material.
I was going to add to what Noraini said, perhaps to explain that, as she said, HDB has been missold to Singaporeans, as I think Lee Kuan Yew said it was an asset that would always appreciate. And both the current PM and Mabul Tan also said words to that effect. But now, I think for many years, Singaporeans have the wool pulled over their eyes as to the true nature of the legal relationship of HDB. And they were not aware that it would decline to zero at the end of the leasehold. So Reform Party proposes to deal with that by either giving HDB owners their freehold in some manner, or to allow them to extend the leasehold for a nominal sum.
Okay, guys. Okay, there's a very important matter that I would like to raise now in the course of our e-rally. A message from CK Lim, Mr. CK Lim, good sir, you have said that extra presence of our party in Buangkok helps. And for Miss Flora Ng has also, regards Miss Flora Ng, she has also requested that we come to an estate. So guys, I have an important point to make, which is that, you know, at the end of the day, we do not have the limitless resources of the PAP, and the PA, we need your help as volunteers. This is where I want to reiterate the call for volunteers. And as you guys would have seen, the video that I delivered on behalf of the Reform Party with the caption appended below my name, which is Chief Campaign Manager bracket volunteers. So I need all of you guys, you know, to step forward and volunteer if you agree with the ideology of the Reform Party. If you agree with the policies proposed by the Reform Party, then also please step forward, because at this point in time, it is not that you know, we do not want to reach. So I have only two things to say. The first thing is I really hope that more persons can step forward to volunteer, and secondly, I also hope that, you know, if you really need to contact us, then you can immediately send us a message, and our party volunteers and activists will engage with you through the Facebook inbox. Okay, by Mr. Joel Tiesin, how to donate? I think, Noraini, can you answer this question, please? How to donate to our party?
Okay, you can donate using PayNow. We have the UEN. Sorry, let me get the number for the UEN is using PayNow. Is T08 SST for Thailand, number 08 SS for Singapore, number 0117E. Or you can transfer funds to DBS current account 100-902-777-0. So 100-902-777-0 is DBS current account. Thank you.
So guys, only other thing I would like to add is that we can view the poster. So at this juncture, I think Mr. Technical Administrator is now about to show an image of the donation. Yes, yes. Under the law, you must be a permissible donor, which means that at this juncture, you have to be to my understanding, you must be a citizen of Singapore or be yeah, and over 21 years old. Yeah. All right. And if you want to donate, you have to call 9820-9549. If you want to volunteer, you have to call 9431-3141. Okay. Now, next question. The next question is that from one Mr. Ming Hao, who is a supporter of Mr. Kenneth Jeyaretnam, and he says that he is really disappointed that you didn't run for an SMC. Can you explain why you have chosen to compete in Ang Mo Kio GRC when you would have greater chance to be elected from the SMC, Mr. Kenneth?
Well, we did have we did consider. I did consider running in an SMC, but unfortunately, I'm subject to a stay-home notice at the moment, which is why you may not have seen me on the ground. But we did have an SMC, which was part of was split out of Ang Mo Kio. And unfortunately, well, we decided, but in the interests of the opposition unity, just as we decided to cede West Coast, we were not going to enter into a three-cornered fight to maximize the chances of MP getting into Parliament, of opposition getting into Parliament. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, at this juncture, I want to remind viewers that if you are concerned about posting a question publicly, because as usual, you know, there is a lot of legitimate fear amongst members of the public to be associated with any opposition activities whatsoever. If you have a desire to ask a question but fear commenting because it would be left there permanently and therefore you could be observed to be interacting with the opposition, then an alternative way you can do it is that you can message your questions to either 94313141, or you can message your questions to our party directly. Guys, the reason I explain again is because there have been a number of you who have told me that and also they have said that you are fearful about commenting your questions directly because it will be left permanently on the video, and therefore in the culture of repression and intimidation in Singapore, you feel fearful to articulate any salient questions.
Charles, I just wanted to add on to what I said before, is that you know, this demonstrates the fact that the election was called in a very rushed manner by the Prime Minister, and he's gambling really with the health of Singaporeans. We've seen a spike in cases almost everywhere, and there was really no need to call an election this year. He could have waited till next year, and everybody is all the members of the opposition are under fighting an election in very adverse conditions. Obviously, in a different scenario without the pandemic, I would have stood in an SMC.
Yeah. So in relation to that question, there is a number of questions. There are three persons to date who have asked this question. which really the gist of the question is that why they are calling upon us to comment on the PSP Nisun and Shanmugam matter. What is your response? I mean,
Charles, I put up a very good response to that journalist on our party Facebook page, which I hope that many of you have read. I've now put up the words endorsed by, this page is endorsed by, officially endorsed by the Law Minister Shanmugam, who spends his time reading our Facebook page. And really, to call how disgraceful that he calls the opposition shambolic when we have the spectacle of the Prime Minister in waiting, Heng Swee Keat, who's gone to shore up East Coast GRC, when he appears not to. I mean, Heng Swee Keat is my old colleague from Cambridge, but he doesn't appear to be able to string a coherent sentence together.
yeah. So, okay. Bryce RTS Ang, you have said that a question here that has come in is that for the free uni education for all who serve NS, is it only for local universities or do you pay for private universities also? And in this case, are females not eligible for this? Kenneth, I think this question has been answered extensively in our last video.
I think
Shall we reiterate?
We clarified our policy by saying that all those who are legally exempted at present with medical conditions or disabilities should also receive free university education. We really want free university education for everyone. We also want to reduce NS to 6 months from the current 2 years. And women should be given an opportunity to serve NS if they wish. It would be directed at local universities only. But Noraini, maybe you would like to say a few words about what policies Reform Party has and our stance on closing the gender pay gap.
Okay, for the women's empowerment, it seems there were homemakers. And as homemakers, most of us hold jobs as well look after members of the family, especially the aged as well as the babies. As such, normally it takes us more than our energy, our time. And certainly if we are working, we need the gender income gap to be at least put closer, not extensively, if you're male having done NS, normally your entry point is much higher. I once had the experience where as a woman, the entry point for any jobs that I apply for is lower because they'll say, are you serving NS? And I say, because I'm a woman, I'm not eligible. And so it's an A for NS for me. So I'll start at lower rank and then I have to look after my sick brother, I have to look after my aged father. And it takes me quite a lot. So I hope to bring up this issue if voted in, because the empowerment for women to be a homemaker as well as an economic worker is so significantly huge. And to emburden us just because of NS issue, the gap and so on, is not fair to us. So to rebuild society after COVID-19 is for a fairer, stronger society. Thank you.
Yeah. I think, Charles, you might like to say something about the, we would like to bring in an Equality Act and aim for targets of 50% female representation in Parliament, well, not make it a hard target in Parliament and in government-owned companies, Temasek and other GLCs. But maybe you'd like to say a bit about an Equality Act.
Okay, the answer is that the problem with, of course, the Reform Party stands for equality on all bases. And I think what Kenneth is talking about is Equality of Opportunity Act. A lot of the questions can be subsumed under this topic, which is equality of opportunity. If we look at, for example, the the reference point would be the Human Rights Act 1998 in the UK, as well as the ECHR, the convention. So the ideas are that, number one, there cannot be discrimination on the basis of exercising of one's civil rights, because a lot of members of the public, you guys would be surprised to hear that there are many persons who are civil servants who express their views to me, but they are fearful. You know, they are critical of the state, but they are fearful, and they know that, especially older ones of the Merdeka generation, they know that if they, in fact, the best example, my friends, is a message that has just come in who stated explicitly, I mean, of course, I cannot reveal his number, but he stated explicitly that he's fearful of asking a question publicly, and in this context, we have to look at the importance of an Equal Opportunity Act, you see, because I just to return back to Kenneth's question, equality of opportunity would encompass no discrimination on grounds of one's exercise of civil rights. It will also encompass no discrimination on the grounds of one's personal political beliefs. And it will also emphasize, are you going to blast the HRA 1998 now? Oh, okay, yeah, so it is, the Equality Act. So it would also encompass no discrimination against women, and also no discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, which includes the 377A question. And the idea is that, persons, for example, even our own candidates that stand for election under the political party banner should not be sacked from their employment after that, because and it actually relates to another question that people have asked about, which is about the difficulty of attracting good persons for party renewal, because this is how the PAP crushes the opposition. You see, guys, we can't attract good persons for party renewal if people are in a climate of fear. Typically, I do not propose to consider myself a good person, but if you look at the persons that have stood up against the opposition, the PAP in history, they usually tend to be persons who are motivated ideologically, like they studied philo, they studied history, they studied human rights, and they therefore know that the PAP's value system, which is social Darwinist in nature, is incompatible with these. If not, they are not in this category, then historically the PAP, the opposition has struggled to attract talent, you see. But the idea is that we want to, I think the Equality Act would address a lot of these concerns, the multifaceted concerns based on discrimination, and we need to ensure that the Equality Act is as broad as possible, that it would correspond to the internationally accepted level of human rights protection. We are not talking about the so-called, Singaporean definition. And of course, I do not want to bore you guys with discussion on constitutional and administrative law now, and the grounds upon which discrimination is forbidden, which are defined narrowly, and moreover, the constitution in Singapore is defined within its own four walls. So this means that, the government will, the Singapore courts will have the right to construe interpretations of the constitution narrowly. But a long story cut short, guys, it can be answered in one sentence, like there is no human rights. So with that point juncture, I am going to propose a question now to be answered, which is, can we answer, all of us answer in one sentence, why we should vote for RP? This question has been asked. Can we all answer now in turn, in one sentence only, why we should vote for RP? Let's start with Darren. Darren, one sentence.
因为我们会为你们发言，我们会替你们争取你们的福利，所以我希望你们支持我们革新党。谢谢。
Okay, Darren said that we will volunteer and struggle to our, we will do to our very best of our endeavor, to our very best of our ability to serve you. Noraini, your turn.
Okay, I believe I'm a niche person. We come from very diverse background, and being myself a minority Malay candidate, I will bring to the mainstream what I'm now a niche, a rare person fighting for our freedom from even any repression, be it our salary, be it our opportunity to upgrade ourselves, or even our representation in parliament. I hope to be voted in to share my aspiration as well as my vision for the future, which is fairer and stronger. Thank you.
Kenneth, would you like to go first or should I go first?
All right. If you elect us to Parliament, we are going to work very hard. We will be full-time MPs, all of us. Those who know my writings will know that I will be dogged in pursuit of what the reserves are and why we can't do more for Singaporeans. And as our slogan says, we want to build back a fairer system for everyone, not just an elite few. And to the residents of Ang Mo Kio, we pledge that we will be a safe hand. Your town council will be in safe hands with us. We will make sure that it's run efficiently and at the lowest possible cost. And savings will be invested back in you or returned to you in lower service and conservancy charges.
Okay, guys, so I mean, I noted that all my three teammates, they did not answer in one sentence, but they answered in a few sentences. But of course, I'm sure you guys will not quibble about this because we need to be able to give a coherent answer that is also compelling, you know, guys. Okay, my answer is that we have to vote for the RP because the RP represents a society that is compatible with any sensible sense of system of morality and values. Extensively, I've written on my social media and I pointed out how the teachings of the PAP that we should be steal each other's lunches and how we are cruel is actually contradictory to the tenets of the world's major religions. I mean, for those of you who may not know, I mean, I'm not trying to flex here, guys, but I spent a lot of my life studying about religion and philosophy, and I also I topped the level in the University of Warwick for Islamic law. And I mean, the idea is that my professor there was like the first woman minister of Pakistan, and I think I'm qualified to comment on this. Okay, guys, the idea is that I want to urge all members of the public who are viewing this to look at the value system of the PAP and ask yourself one question, or rather two questions. The first question is that, is the system of cruelty to those who are below you and also stealing each other's lunches, is this compatible with your own personal value system of morality? Secondly, if you feel that you are amoral, meaning that there is no system of morality whatsoever, then you must ask yourself, is this sustainable in the long run? It becomes an issue of, if people start to, this value system proposed by the PAP, will it create a situation where the social fabric is torn asunder, that persons start to be suspicious of each other and value each other only for the value that they can create? And the society becomes increasingly morally degenerate because all persons are forced to collect cardboard, they are forced to collect cans, and simply because they have no economic value. Is a society that ill-treats the migrant workers and treats them as invisible compatible with your own moral and religious worldview? This is the reason. If it is compatible, then of course you should vote for the PAP. If you feel that's compatible. If you feel it's not compatible, then you must vote for us. And my submission is that it is not compatible. That the PAP's value system is incompatible with the with the vast majority of religion and moral theories lah. Okay, yeah. So now at this juncture in time, let me see. There was a question earlier. Yeah, there was a question earlier calling on us to rather. I think this is a very interesting point, which is that this election will be different because many young people will be voting, and basically it's for our future. Housing, cars, ERP, etc. Okay, I think what Mr. Nitsuch is trying to say is that the young tend to support the opposition. Mr. Kenneth, do you agree with this claim that has been advanced by many persons?
I think young people everywhere are progressive and more altruistic, perhaps. So they would tend to, and more radical in their thinking. And, you know, we are concerned about the long term. That's why we put forward our Green Manifesto to deal with climate change. I hope that many of you have read that. So I think the Reform Party would appeal to those who are idealistic, and that tends to be young people. You know, we would also seek to lower the voting age to 18. If you can serve NS, you should be able to vote. Everybody should be able to vote at 18. So I think, you know, I would hope we would appeal to all segments of the population. But, you know, maybe we would have a special appeal towards the younger generation. To anybody?
I think for first-time voters, I believe you want to exercise that newly found freedom. You got the key to determine your own future. So with that key come the responsibility and also accountability. You have to shoulder the final outcome. So if you don't want to vote anybody, you have to take the risk, whether you deserve them in the parliament. Like the last time when the GE2015, the majority, even youngsters, had voted for, you know, I believe the sympathy vote for Lee Kuan Yew, and we deserve what we got. And right now, if you want to change that deserving, I believe you're empowered to one more time. This time the opportunity may arise for new voters to determine your future. But do exercise with care, and you must hold it for the next 5 years at least. If not, when they do another election, then you can exercise it again. So with that, I hope you don't regret. Just exercise with care and concern, and for the love of Singapore. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Chua Bing Hong has made a very good point and asked us to, you know, he has made a good point about the distinction between legality and morality. He is trying to say, Mr. Chua Bing Hong has made a comment and that the morality of the society, that the laws in Singapore may be legal, but yet unfair and immoral. Do you all want to comment on this, any of you?
I think you should comment first.
Okay. So, Mr. Chua Bing Hong, you are absolutely correct. Throughout history, the law reflects the thinking of the society. Of course, there are various theories of jurisprudence, but largely it has been agreed that the declaratory theory of law has been rejected by modern academia to say that the judges do not find law, but they make law. And the main point is that if you look at it in history, laws like apartheid, the Nazi discrimination laws, were also recognized as laws of their time. So when we discuss about this matter, we have to always observe that there are a few points I want to make. First of all, number one, the law may be legal, but it may still be immoral or unethical, in the sense that it is the law decided by by the persons of the day, and it is, I mean by the government of the day, and it may often, a good example, in this sense, the law has to be construed widely. It could encompass, I think when a lot of the members of the public are commenting about the law, they are including policies that are not codified in law, but in Singapore's context, due to the lack of, like for example, human rights lawyers, democratic accountability, it becomes almost enshrined in law. An example would be the exclusion of Malays from the Air Force, and also the exclusion of the Malays from Intel, because of course there is no law excluding the two of them. But if you look at the reality, like for example, I serve in Tengah Air Base, there is no Malay there at all. So it is almost as if a law has been enacted to exclude Malays from that branch of the armed forces, and therefore we say that this is a immoral rule. So in that sense, I think Mr. Chua Bing Hong, you are trying to articulate your views that the law is construed widely. Yeah, and I agree. So guys, do you have anything more to add? That a law could be sometimes immoral, but yet persons in the authoritarian society of Singapore would find themselves compelled to obey the law, because very few persons would dare to be like Kenneth's dad. I think the percentage is very low. Yeah.
Does anybody want to say?
Okay, the process of formulation of law, from what I understand from last time, they have this white paper where you can moot a clause or moot some issue, and then there will become some debate if it's necessary. And then they will even have a blue paper, and after that, if it's decided, they will go on with the bill, they call it, and then they get the supplies, the management of supplies or something, to even enact the law. But that process has been, I think, made defunct after GE 2015. So now they just vote in parliament to enact or to produce a law like POFMA, that kind of thing, where they even have a select committee at its most to debate on it first before they pass the bill. And to enforce it, they would need the courts to do their job. It's only the pass down to the enforcement. And of course, comes the police who will catch you if you don't obey those laws. So there's a lawmaker in the parliament. So there's the law observers as us, and also there's the law enforcers as in the police, as in the judiciary. Beyond that, none of us can really control if you're outside, unless the democratic processes like this coming election will determine who will be so vocal as to either veto or at least bring out issues in parliament when we bring out any issues to make it into a bill and so on. So perhaps you may want to have a more balanced and more fair circumstances of people in the parliament to bring about a better law formulation. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'd just like to maybe sum up by just saying, the distinction is often made between rule by law and rule of law.
Yeah. Yes. I should have begun with that.
It's interpretations.
Rule of law, but in fact,
yeah.
a rule by law. We have a situation in which there's insufficient scrutiny and accountability as legislation, and we have the government acting as though it's effectively above the law, with even the judiciary saying that they're not there to check the executive. So, we want to see rule of law and, a proper system of checks and balances and separation of powers.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, before, of course, I'll just touch up on this, conclude on this matter, as today we are not conducting legal education class. Yeah, guys, but of course, Kenneth has made a very good point, and I will try to use this to transit to the next question that was asked, because the difference between rule of law, in this sense, rule of law, the R and L is capitalized to show that no one is above the law, and to show that and whereas rule by law refers to a society where the law could be bent to shape to serve the interests of the elite of the day, and that the law is constantly very flexible. So of course, the idea is that the separation of power, before we go into like separation of powers, we just want to say that any legal scholar in Singapore will note that the courts in Singapore are very deferential to the executive. They actually subscribe to the green light theory, which is proposed in constitutional administrative law, to say that the court should not interfere with the executive powers of should not interfere with the executive. And so, whereas this is contrary to an activist judiciary like in the US, so I'm going to use this to transit to another question, which is really about. But before that, I think because this gentleman, Mr. Devanan, asked two questions. The first question is directed to Kenneth. The second question relates to law, but I think we'll answer his first question first. His first question is that, would the limitation of NS to 6 months be effective, and would soldiers be prepared and fully trained to defend the country in terms of skill and warfare, however you put it?
Okay, is that the question?
He's basically asking, based on your proposed reform, will we?
I would say that we want to ultimately have a fully professional army, and I think Switzerland, Taiwan, and other countries have national service around the 6 months level. We don't really have an immediate threat from our neighbors at the moment, and I don't see why we cannot reduce national service, particularly if it's broadened to include women up to with a limited period of 6 months. So we would we don't think we need to reduce defense spending substantially. We might even have to increase it to get a properly professional army and ensure those doing NS are properly paid.
Yeah. At this juncture, guys, I'm just sharing the stream because the stream was advertised to last for 2 hours, and we are now at the 9:30 mark. We will now admit questions for another half an hour. Guys, kindly assist to, once again at this point, I want to, before I move on to to the gentleman's second question, I want to repeat our call for volunteers and also donations. Can Mr. Technical Administrator, can you flash the appropriate material? Yeah, guys, you all can just access it on the Facebook page. So long story cut short, you should call 9431-3141 if you want to volunteer, or 9423-1682. As we speak, the technical administrator is now going to flash the material.
Yeah, if we're talking about donations, I think the specific. We don't want people to think that we're just calling for donations with no use for them. Obviously, we're in the middle of an election campaign, and there are some specific purposes, like mail drops that we need money to pay for, so that the residents from Azang Mokio can receive our program or our manifesto. And all this, I think we're talking $5,000 for a mail drop, various sums. So every little will help. If amounts as small as $5, $10, even a few dollars. If everybody gave $1, obviously our financial issues would be solved. And to add to what Charles said earlier about volunteers, we really need also polling and counting agents for election day.
Yeah. So, guys, at this juncture, okay, thanks, Mr. Technical Administrator. I think we can go back to the normal screen now. Yeah, a good point has been raised by 2B Love, who has been, shout out to 2B Love, he has been commenting, and a sensible point was made by him. Do you guys agree that 6 months is really adequate for national service, and perhaps there should be an extra amount for persons who are leaders, specs and officers in the army, because they have to learn and know more, and they should be compensated at the market rate for the equivalent period of service rather than being shamelessly exploited for being cheap labor. These are the words verbatim of 2B. Yeah, yeah. What do you guys think?
Perhaps Darren might like to say a few words.
Yeah, Darren.
Sorry, the question again?
Darren, yeah, Charles.
Darren, speak in English, Darren. Darren, speak in English, please, to show that you are conversant in English.
Sorry, what's the question again?
Darren, do you agree with the comment that there is a comment that has come which is saying that 6 to 12 months is far more than enough, and also that we could look at an additional period for persons like specs and officers. Basically, a spec is the sergeant, and then if the period of time is very long, this would be and the person is not paid at market rate, it would be a shameless exploitation of these persons as being cheap labor.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think 6 months for NCOs should be sufficient. As just now, Kenneth has said that we do not have any immediate threat from the neighboring countries. Okay.
Yeah.
So for officers, I think 1 year should be sufficient, and
Yeah.
also we should pay them according to the market rate, and
Yeah.
not exploit them.
Yeah.
This is my point. And
Yeah.
I'll stand. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So I just want to add briefly, I think my personal view on this is really I support the Reform Party wholeheartedly upon this. And long before I even joined the Reform Party, I advocated this repeatedly in my personal capacity, that first of all, it is ridiculous it is ridiculous to call for national service. I mean, we are not opposed to national service per se. And the strange coincidence is that, which perhaps, for want of a better word, prophesied my joining of the Reform Party, was that I actually wrote the points stated in our manifesto verbatim even before I joined the Reform Party, which is to say that, first of all, for NS we should leave the period of conscription should be about 6 months, and persons should be paid at a market rate for their service. Of course, they shouldn't be paid excessively, and they should be also allowed to serve national service in a wider in a wider range, meaning that, for example, it is not purely military service, okay, or police or SCDF service. Now, the justification is that 2 years is really a long period of time, and the US maintains, military supremacy globally with a force of about 400,000. Because I see, strangely, I see comments discussing about US Mr. Jess, Chris, I've chosen to really not respond to you, because you are talking about a lot of matters, regrettably, that are irrelevant to our discussion today, such as about the international dispute between US and China, and also. But anyway, of course, you have the right to your views, Mr. Jess. But I want to say that if the period of conscription is long, that it is long and at 2 years, it flies in the face of logic, guys, because the US is able to maintain global supremacy with a few 100,000 people. Secondly, the truth of the matter, let's not hide the truth. A lot of persons during NSF period, they are very slack. They were playing the PSP. The PSP in this sense doesn't mean the Progress Singapore Party. Yeah? It means the PlayStation Portable, guys. So I still remember when I was active personnel, they were waiting to book out, and then mostly the truth of the matter is that many of them during the NS period today, they spend the NS period going to Siam Diu on Saturday, and also like just like watching Bigo live and doing all this kind of nonsense and letting their mind rot during the 2 years. So you see, guys, the next issue which I pointed out extensively in my own writings, I pointed out is that a person that is not motivated is not a good soldier at all. This is a very important point because these are not soldierly characters to begin with. And you have to look at the concept of able and willing. You see, the first question is that guys, this is not a joke, because I observed that firstly, I'm not physically strong, but when I went for some of the, because I went for RT because I was not because I had failed the IPPT, but because I had forgotten about, I didn't satisfy the requirement. So I managed to clear it. But when I attended the sessions at RT, I noticed to my shock that many of the persons there were unable to run a few hundred meters without panting. And they were physically unfit, And of course, the big question is really that the PAP has neglected, because the PAP wants NS to be a tool of social control. The PAP has neglected the question that are these persons a credible defense deterrent? They are obviously not. The credible defense deterrents that Singapore does have are regulars. These regulars that I meet, they are really in good body shape, and like for example, when I go out with them, then like girls who want to be introduced to them and all this stuff. Honestly speaking, they are in a good physical, body shape. So, but the idea is that, guys, we have to really look at logic before we criticize, because I've seen a lot of persons comment about 6 months being inadequate to we have to look at what is the international norm, and I think Kenneth has done his research before he proposed six months. And let's look at the period of conscription in the context of soldiers who are committed. We don't want persons who will turn up to make the number, but they will desert. This is a very important question that people have not examined before they open their mouth. I personally feel sorry for my harsh views. So Miss Noraini, do you agree with your party's view that NS should be extended to women? Noraini, can you answer?
In fact, when I was 16, they have this kind of question whether my batch of cohort will be introduced as woman enlisted NS person. And then to my surprise, I was ready, like, whether there'll be health issues that I have to face, because at one time I was anemic, when I was younger, and I was at flu, but otherwise I'm okay, and I had gone under surgery. But at that time, 1968 batch of cohort born women or born females, they have since decided not to have enlistment for women. It was my batch when they tentatively kind of consider getting women into NS. So my batch would be the first batch if they decide to go ahead. When I asked what finally made that time, I think it was Lee Kuan Yew, to go against having women in NS, was because of economic consideration. At that time, girls as young as 14 has kind of serve economic at factories, and they also look after parents when they're younger, and the siblings and all that. So economically, they are the backbone of the workers. So by the time they're 18, they become SIA girls, they become the backbone of the economy. And to generate enough resources as to pay them, even the merger at that time was about $40-something, $45 or something per person, per month, to even go for an S, it was a burden. So decide not to have women who earns at that time was few hundred to go for factory work, to go for nursing jobs, even as young as 16, and to go for SIA jobs, become stewardess. The economic burden becomes so great at that time, they decide not to have my batch, my cohort of 1968 born women, to become enlisted as NS, NS trained. So right now, they've never mooted any more, whether women will be considered for NS or so on. You see? So it's such, even with the dwindling, kind of population, we never have the replacement level of 2. 2.0 even. They don't mind not having women. So I don't know whether they will even bring it up. But personally, I believe if it comes to self kind of upliftment, I was told at one time it's good to even go for NCC, you know, National Cadet Corps training, some basic know-how, how to defend. You know, it's just for survival, even how to, you know, go for jungle or hiking so that it won't become like weakling, you know, so that you will be fit for life. So it's a good experience to be exposed to a bit of maybe discipline, a bit of a boot camp. But otherwise, in terms of economics, we're not quite sure how the government, upon suggestion that women will be in NS, will be able to match even for any suggested 1968 born woman at that time was rejected for NS services, national service, because of the consideration of economics as well as social. So, but right now, if you ask me personally, it's good to bring back at least those who wants to go to NS, it's their own free will. Because right now, there are few women who apply to join.
Charles, I wanted to say, I think, you know, there's been some misunderstanding about this, but fundamentally, the principle is one of equality. And just as women shouldn't earn less than men, they shouldn't be deprived of, obviously, women contribute by having children. They have to spend years often of their working lives looking after children, but you know, we should have an equal society, and there's no reason why women should be othered, just as, you know, Malays shouldn't have been excluded from national service. We want everybody to be full citizens and enjoy the same rights and privileges.
Yeah. Okay, guys. At this juncture, Divanan Nakunan has asked me a question. He said, Charles, I have a question for you. What is your opinion on 377A and the death penalty in Singapore? Both are archaic, as evidence suggests, and it's not a question of policy. If elected, will you advocate for radical changes to be made in respect of the above? I would welcome views from all candidates. Can I answer first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my answer very simply is, of course, yes. You know, I said before many times that I think I've written extensively on both, and personally, at the end of the day, I stand for the abolition of the death penalty and the repeal of 377A. And a frequent commenter on all of the videos is actually who was a previous candidate of the Reform Party, and actually he is my mentor. All lawyers in Singapore, when you have to be admitted to the bar, you have to choose a PTC mentor. And I mean, out of the other, long story cut short, he is the lawyer in Singapore who has been constantly championing these two matters for years. So I do not think I deviate from his views on this matter at all. I mean, the two matters, which is, I repeat again, that I personally have this view, but I want to hear if the rest of them agree with the repeal of 377A and the abolition of the death penalty. And I will later on, if I have their clearance, then I will share on the logical justification for the two.
Okay, for myself, I believe it's human rights to uphold any abuses to be abolished. For once, like 377A is the rights to have a gender kind of LGBT. Now they have the Q LGBT, that type. Because it's against their human rights. They have the right to live as dignifiedly and as not to repress and not to be discriminated against. But for the abolition of the death penalty, is to human rights. If they can prolong life, even those who have been, you know, especially for drug trafficking, they should be the first to consider prolonging life, because I'm pro-life. And at the same time, I'm pro-life choices. You know what I mean? So it's best to have such life choices. So I'm against the death penalty, actually, because I'm pro-life.
Okay, let's hear from Darren, guys, before we hear from Kenneth, because I think Kenneth has really shared his views extensively on, but let's hear from Darren first. Darren, Mr. Darren, we would like to hear your views on, in either English or Chinese, on these two matters, Mr. Darren. First is the abolition of the death penalty. The second is the repeal of 377A. What are your views?
You say about these are abolition of the death penalty.
Yeah, and repeal of 377A.
Okay. I do not. I think I do not totally disagree with taking away the death sentence. I still support the death sentence because I believe that we need this death sentence to be around so that we can ensure that the safety of we have to ensure the safety of the whole country. So I still believe that we can keep this death sentence. As for repealing of the homosexuality or 377A, I do not want this 377A to be repealed.
Yeah, I think we can pass on, really, Charles. But
Yes.
it is our policy that decriminalization, and I don't understand why we still have it, because the Prime Minister has said you are welcome to come here to Singapore to work if you are gay, and yet it's still kept on the statute books, something from British colonial times, in fact from the 1840 Indian Penal Code, along with flogging with a bamboo cane. So, you know, I think it's time that we got rid of that. You know, but I think there are more pressing subjects, really.
There are more pressing subjects.
Equality for all, and an Equality Act. It has to be seen in the wider context of non-discrimination against people on the basis of gender, sexual orientation, race, nationality, language, religion, etc. So perhaps we can move on to the next question.
Okay, guys, we are going to move on. And just to clarify, I think Mr. CV Hawkeye, Darren was not saying he wants to impose a death sentence on the LGBTQ community. You see, we have to be very careful. Darren is not saying that. So please kindly do not misunderstand what Darren is saying. He was not saying that. So anyway, moving on. Do we believe that the population would be 10 million? Is this for real or just make believe? Kenneth, you can answer.
Was that what was that? Do we believe that the population of 10 million
will one day be 10 million?
Well, I think as I've said or argued, that the PAP's economic model has always been based on continually growing the population to keep GDP growth high without a corresponding benefit to Singaporeans. We don't have a minimum wage. We don't have unemployment insurance. We don't have, many of the other social safety nets that you would expect in an advanced, rich nation like ours. So I think, our population density is already the highest or the second highest in the world, maybe only Macau and Monaco, very, very tiny little countries, much smaller than even Singapore, have higher densities. So I think, we have to consider that, maybe we're reaching a maximum upper bound around now. While we still welcome immigration. You know, we have to think of our limited resources.
Okay.
Maybe Noreen.
Let's comment, Noreen. We can extend maybe about
Okay.
yeah.
We are global entrepreneurs, and as such, I believe even you want to retain people through migration or immigration into a country, or even immigration, we are not able to sustain such population yet, I believe. At 10 million, it takes our very infrastructure for better lives in Singapore. So most of those people coming and leaving, or even being born here but left, is because of the migratory kind of pattern. So to sustain a 10 million population is not yet, I think, achievable at this stage, because the rate at which they can be, coming or growth is too low. I mean, in terms of birth, in terms of coming in for as immigrants or even foreign workers, even the foreign dormitory is not enough to contain the lives here. So unless, of course, you think of building, underground or above the ground, further higher buildings, above the 188 kind of meters or 280 meters. In terms of livelihood, we're not able to sustain, I believe, at this stage yet. Unless, of course, technology avails, medical, and even COVID can be contained. We will tend to be a transitory point only for most of the masses that come and go. So I don't think it's achievable at the stage of 10 million. We're not like Hong Kong, where the nearby hinterland like China will supply the numbers. Even Malaysia and Indonesia, the most populous country like Indonesia, we're not able to be coming to our city state and be living here, because it's very expensive, and secondly, we're not able to sustain such growth yet. Yeah.
Okay, at this point in time, okay, Mr. Jack Chan is asking who is the RP candidate for Fernvale. Repeatedly, as I have informed my guys, I noted that a lot of you have been calling out for us to visit Fernvale. And I hope that you guys will understand that, unlike the PAP's resources, we have very limited resources. The PAP can pay so many people to, they have so many supporters who hang up posters and banners and go on walkabouts, but we really have a much smaller team. Tomorrow we will be going down to Fernvale. I want to, first of all, apologize on behalf of the party that we have not yet gone down to Fernvale, and numerous messages have been received regarding this matter of Fernvale. Tomorrow we will be going down at 10 a.m. and we will hope to see all of you residents of Fernvale there. Yeah. So can So Guan Soon share what he intends to champion if elected? A person known as Ping Chang Xin has just asked. So Guan Soon, please.
Okay, if I get elected, I will champion for the less privileged people, for the people who are below 20% of our society. Yeah, these are the more vulnerable and less privileged people. I will champion for this group of people if I'm elected into the parliament. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So maybe Guan Soon, Darren, would you like to elaborate on your feelings about the retrenched PMATs, because you have shared extensively with me about your feelings for your belief that this is a very worthy cause. Can you share, Darren?
Okay. Because these people, they are in the sandwich situation. Okay, that means they have the elderly parents to support, and at the same time they have young children and probably they have this wife who are not working because the wife is taking care of the children and also maybe taking care of the elderly parents or parent-in-law. So these people, PMEX, if they are retrenched, they are in a very, very vulnerable situation. So if I am elected into the parliament, I will definitely advocate and strategize some help or some assistance to help this group of people, and make sure that when government make policies, government will always think of the Singaporean first. Okay, Singaporean first. They must always think of the Singaporean. 以新加坡人为先的一个政策。
Great. Okay, so at this juncture, as another message as we speak, another message has come in regarding this matter of Fernvale. I do not know why is it that constantly people are asking us for Fernvale, and I mean at this moment in time we are all laughing. As I said earlier, I've said repeatedly over the course of this video, I have been keeping track now. It's about 24 persons have been asking about why are we not able to go to Fernvale. Guys, I stress again, our team is limited. Ang Mo Kio GRC is one of the largest, in fact, it is the largest.
Because it's the largest GRC.
Yes. We have been covering
186,000.
Yeah. You see, we have been doing all the various areas, including AMK Hougang, Cheng San Seletar. We started with Cheng San Seletar, then we went to after that went to Sengkang South, and then we went to AMK Hougang today. So Fernvale will be tomorrow. I mean, I know that you guys in Fernvale are very excited to see us, because I really I mean, of all the wards, constantly there are messages regarding Fernvale. So we really appreciate, you know, your thoughts. And in fact, I'm minded to conclude that for some reason or another, the persons in Fernvale are very progressive in their thought, and they want to hear from us. So tomorrow we will be going down, and at 10 a.m. we'll be there the whole day. I mean, or at least for the better part of the day. And I will be posting later on the details of where exactly in Fernvale we will be going. Yeah. Okay, so we are new estate young voters who would like to have alternative voice. Muhammad Shafi, are you from Fernvale? Yes, I think you are, because you are one of the persons who have been constantly commenting about this. And thank you, Mr. Muhammad Shafi, for your support. Okay, at this juncture in time, regards the Cheng San, a person has asked, Charles, please send us residents of Cheng San Ward your RP stickers. Cheng San Ward is just facing opposite Teck Ghee LHL. Yes, we handed out some stickers. Kindly contact, you can call me at 94313141. I will hand you out the material, the badge, and all that. So okay, I want to continue on with I think the best question that our SG has stated to be the overarching question is really about what we intend to champion. So as Darren has answered that, can we have now Noraini to answer what will you champion if you are elected into parliament?
Again, it's economic issues with regards to our savings, like the CPF, and our work is so repressed when it comes to salary increment and the starting pay for women. It tends to be lower than the men because of the NS issues. So with empowerment like NS be considered for women, we hope to uplift more than repress further. So it's unfair to say that the manifesto about free education for NS going person will be to promote more of such inequality. So as such, I will champion first and foremost our CPF to be released at 55 years old, and secondly to uplift those kind of opportunity for the minorities, especially like us women, the minority races, because sometimes just on the note of NS and all that, they are not enlisted to the better position, like officer cadet course, OCS, and so on. So with such discriminatory practices, I understand it's unfair, it's imbalanced. To strike a balance is based not even on meritocracy, but how much you can be uplifted, according to what your ability according to what is available in terms of technology, in terms of, attainment, what you can absorb as a person with technology, how you can be uplifted, bodily as well as mentally, as well as socially. Because you're mixing on the environment, if there's kind of segregation, if there's any of such limitation, barriers arise, so you will not be able to cross over. The gap will be increasing, and over such steep accesses, you can have even access to good technology, good medical, good education. You will mostly be crippled totally. So my championing from CPF, as well as maybe some benefits where you can even have good children, and or perhaps you have a more balanced and less kind of less divisive, more inclusive society. That's what I hope to bring about once elected. Please vote for RP. That's what we are championing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Len V, for you has just WhatsApp to me a donation, and also another lady has who does not want her to be named. She has there. Thank you, guys. I want to publicly thank you. You have just sent me a screenshot of your PayNow transfer to the Reform Party UEN ending 117E. Actually, we really thank you guys, because at the end of the day, no point for me to step, all of us to step forward and all that if we don't have the donations to the party. Because I can tell you honestly, until now, I have not sought reimbursement from the party, and I honestly do not plan to. And I can understand why, because I've been paying taxi fare and all this every day myself. But anyway, we want to thank you guys, and I'm sure Kenneth, Andy, the rest of the committed party activists and volunteers, they really, really thank you. Even more, we all really thank you. And at this juncture, I think I will let Kenneth answer last, because in terms of seniority, he's more senior, and I will just answer the question of what I hope to champion. Okay. Yeah, before we pass the mic to Kenneth. So to long story cut short, the three issues I will be championing, the three segments or three issues I'll be championing in Parliament if I'm elected. Firstly, will be the first area will relate to areas of my life that I've experienced. The first area I will be championing will be the abolition of, the restoration of civil rights and fundamental liberties in Singapore, which is very, very dear to me, and I've always believed in that, and I've written extensively on this. And this means restoration of press, freedom of speech, and freedom of accountability, the abolition of POFMA. This is one of the largest reasons why I got involved in supporting the opposition and all that. Secondly, the second thing I'm going to champion is really the educational system, and this relates to I enjoy giving tuition, and also basically, I think, in fact, some of my tuition students or former tuition students have been WhatsApping me pictures of myself on the news, and I interact with them a lot. I believe that the education system has to be reformed, and I believe that our manifesto has discussed about this matter extensively. Thirdly, I plan to champion the interests of small businessmen and SME owners, because as a person who was involved in setting up business, and I've always I've been told by people that I'm entrepreneurial and all that, and persons who know me will know that I've been involved in multiple small businesses, and I actually often offer pro bono legal advice to these shopkeepers, that I believe that small businesses are very important and have been systematically targeted by the PAP and have never been really assisted by the PAP, and therefore these self-employed persons have historically formed the backbone of opposition supporters. If I'm elected to Parliament, I will champion these three causes. Now I will pass it to Kenneth to answer what will he champion if he is elected.
Well, I think because of the pandemic and also climate change, several factors are coming together to make the PAP economic model, which has always been one of over-saving with huge CPF and austerity policies of not spending on the people, building up leading to big export surpluses and high accumulation of reserves, which has become an end in itself, with no transparency on what has been accumulated. So I would like to champion a new type of an economic model that is more focused on the domestic consumer, on raising the living standards of Singaporeans. For instance, consumption is only about 30% of our economy. In most advanced industrial economies, it's about 70%, 60 to 70%. I want to see us exporting less and enjoying a higher living standard, saving less and enjoying a higher living standard at home. I want to see, bring about transparency and accountability over the reserves, and see that we see a proper spending on it to bring about things like universal health care, payments to the old and to families with children. So these are the kind of things that we should be doing. But, I believe that should all be in the context of a private enterprise economy. So we should try and reduce the state footprint and control over the economy through privatization, if possible. Real privatization, not phony privatization.
Okay, guys, we are going to conduct this for about 5 to 10 minutes more, and after that we will cut it short. And at this juncture, I think about 5 more minutes, Kenneth, 2 comments have been made saying that suggesting that we do a Facebook Live together with Mr. Kumar Apavu, who is our candidate for Radin Mas. Will we be doing this?
Well, I think there are a number of things. Obviously, we have got 5 or 6 days less of campaigning, so I'm sure we will. But this was primarily to be focused on Ang Mo Kio GRC, and because Kumar is a second-time candidate, he stood before in Radin Mas. He knows the area very well. But in Ang Mo Kio, we are facing obviously a very uphill struggle. It's the Prime Minister's GRC, and we were doing outreach before this, mostly in West Coast. So the residents in Ang Mo Kio don't know us as well. So, that's the reason why it appears so, but we have been focusing more on Ang Mo Kio for the time being.
Yeah. Okay, so all right. Final question we are going to admit before we end the stream is really a question from our previous candidate and supporter, Mr. Siva Chandran, who was also the Ang Mo Kio Town Council manager for many years. He has said that his question will now be read verbatim by me, which is that I personally know many residents who love to vote alternative parties and believe our vote is not secret, and they might be ripped off from all the so-called goodies the government is giving to them periodically. I have personally assured them, but still they are skeptical. What's your say on this matter?
I think personally we are quite of blackmailed or extorted to a certain point. So to be truly free of such fear that will be withheld of any goodies or any of such made out is to be autonomous. So in terms of economic, we must be empowered, not just through votes, but through the dollar vote as well. So to get an equal opportunity or more opportunity in jobs as compared to those PAP who are given good position through maybe their associates with the party itself, is a start. You see, unless you want to begin somewhere to be placed on your own 2 feet, you will not be able to significantly make any changes. any change at all. So to start is to be daring enough to break free of this stranglehold, that the government is giving you carrots. You know what I mean? So you must be empowered to grow your own food, to grow your own, I mean, not technically as to even to have a plantation in Singapore, but more of your ideas, of your mind and your psyche, to brave it all, to try new things, to come forward, not to be repressed, not to be extorted, not to be blackmailed into thinking, these handouts are all that you need, is self-sufficient. You don't need anything else, but you do need more than just these hands out. You know what I mean? You just be break free, be free, not to be too scared. Initially, I was too even threatened, So you vote opposition, your job will be lost, your rice bowl will be broken. Not true. Just have a dare. Sooner or later, it comes to the point where you don't have any more of such handouts even, because the things are different. COVID, will flatten any curve. Instead, you have more infection, you know what I mean? So you'll be one more maybe cooped up again, and that will be level out of anything, your income. So try new things now with COVID-19 pandemic here. So be daring enough to vote us in. Trust us, trust everyone that we can work hard. Thank you.
Okay, Kenneth, do you have any comments?
Well, I think what I can say is that, as the Prime Minister's brother himself said, you love Singapore. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to love the PAP. So people shouldn't be scared of voting for us. We need accountability and transparency. The opposition are much more in danger with this snap election called by the PM, where the disadvantages faced by the opposition are even greater, much greater even than usual. And we've never had truly free or fair elections. The opposition are much more in danger of being wiped out than forming the government. Our objective in the short to medium term is obviously to deny the government a 2/3 majority. And, I'm sure, Bill, that we have the talents within the opposition to be able to form a government at some stage, maybe not immediately, but in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Okay. Before I will now share my views briefly, and then after that, guys, we'll wrap it up. I think Siva's question is really a wonderful question, and is in fact one of the biggest questions on the minds of. It's one of the most relevant questions, because every day, even as we speak, as I was alternate tabbing to my phone, I saw there are many persons who express support in my beliefs or tell me that they really appreciate me from speaking up or that. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter, Siva, is that you should know best, because like Ravi and must have. It is the same situation for a lot of persons in Singapore who fought for election. We see that a lot of times people will send messages of support, but because of the culture of fear and intimidation, people are very fearful to even stand up to be an assentor. And the way I interpreted your question is to say that there is really a culture of intimidation for those who oppose, but a culture of gravy train for those who support. So these two things viewed together makes it very difficult for persons to, and this is the crux of what I've really written about extensively, to say that the PAP wants to create a culture of such intimidation, and really at the end of the day, if you bow the knee and you are willing to conform and you are willing to subscribe to their ideology, then you will be able to prosper in Singapore. But to conclude, I said that this is really bad because of two reasons. They constantly parrot the narrative of meritocracy, but firstly, their definition of meritocracy is very narrow and does not encompass many other types of merit.
Charles,
Second,
I was just wondering, we've gone well past the 2-hour limit now.
Yeah.
And perhaps we should just draw this to a close. We can cover this on another.
okay, sure. Yeah, so
Zoom.
I think, to be honest, it is really quite late. So we shall, at this point in time, if any of you guys have anything more to say.
I think we just want to repeat our call for, we need polling agents, we need counting agents, and we need volunteers. So please call us if you can spare any time. And we also need money to be able to reach out to you. So, perhaps we could just put up this. I think, that's all I have to say. And I think we'll adjourn the meeting now and say good night to you all, and hope for your votes on Friday next week.
Thank you. Yeah, guys, so that will be it. Okay, at this juncture, Mr. TA, can you disconnect the call now?